Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, we shall be taking a look at the unintended consequences of vaccination. We shall take the example of polio vaccination in India. Polio vaccination is often quoted as the textbook example for its success in India. Despite the massive population and poor hygienic conditions and poverty, polio vaccination has been remarkably effective. Effective in terms of numbers measured for polio cases detected or reported. There have been no cases reported or detected in a big country like India since 2011. That is quite a remarkable record. But we must realize that vaccination comes at a cost. And there are unintended consequences that we must be aware of. And we must be ready to pay the social price of this public health measure. The information in this video is based on the research papers on this slide and the one following it. Information has also been drawn from these two references. The first question that comes to mind is polio curable? Well, here is what the World Health Organization has to say in its release dated 20th January 2020. What the World Health Organization says is that there is no cure for polio. It can only be prevented. Polio vaccine given multiple times can protect a child for life. Those of you who are interested in seeing this reference can go to this URL. In the year 2000, World Health Organization made this particular recommendation. In order to achieve polio eradication in India during 2000, extra national immunization days and house-to-house mopping up rounds should be organized. In other words, they were recommending a very aggressive approach. You can refer to the World Health Organization bulletin at the following reference. Let us now take a look at the polio cases reported between this 20-year period, 1974 to 1993. The total of number of cases which were recorded were 3,41,000 or 341,000. You will notice from this graph that there was a spike in 1981 and then there was a steady decline. And once again, there was a similar spike, but to a lesser order, and then a steady decline. We are not told why this happened, and I have not been able to access any literature to explain these two spikes and the two declines. If we look at the number of cases reported between 1995 and 2012, which is a 17-year period, following the previous graph that we saw in the previous slide, the number has drastically dropped to 14,875, which is a remarkable recovery. At one time, in that 20-year period, we were having more than approximately 17,000 cases per year on an average, and that reduced to less than that number, just 14,875 over a 17-year period. And what is remarkable is that from 2011 onwards, there were no cases that were detected or reported. So this is a very interesting number, and we shall visit that once again later. Let us now take a look at another disease. This is known as NPAFP or non-polio acute flaccid paralysis. It mimics polio, but it is not polio. But what exactly are the symptoms? It comes with an onset of weakness or paralysis with reduced muscle tone in children. And mind you, this applies to children below the age of 15 years of age. Some cases of flaccid paralysis can be treated, and others may be permanent. If it is left untreated, the person suffocates and dies due to paralysis of the muscles that control breathing. So it is indeed a very serious condition. I will now show you a graph which plots the total cases of non-polio acute flaccid paralysis for each year between the year 2000 and 2016. On the left side are the number of cases, and on the right side the vertical axis shows the incidence rate per 100,000. The bar graph that will now come up in orange applies to the number of cases each year. So you'll notice that there has been a steady increase from the year 2000 all the way up to 2011, after which there has been a steady decline. Mind you, the year 2000 has been shown here because that is when the World Health Organization came up with a directive of a very aggressive intervention. If we wish to look at the numbers in terms of the incidence rate for every 100,000 of population, the blue line plots that. As you can see, the rate in the year 2000 was less than 2 instances for every 100,000, and the rate steadily grew up, especially after the year 2000, all the way approaching 14 per 100,000, which is very, very alarming. This particular stage, when the numbers started decreasing, was when the oral polio vaccine doses were decreased. We have seen this graph in the previous slide, and if you add up all the numbers, the total number of non-polio acute flaccid paralysis for this 16-year period is 6,42,370 or 642,370. Let us compare this number with the total number of polio cases which occurred in that 20-year period from 1974 to 1973. And you will notice a big difference. It's almost twice as many the number of cases of polio that happened in 20 years occurred in this 16-year period. And that is not only very remarkable, but something of great concern. It is natural to ask what should be the rate for non-polio acute flaccid paralysis in normal circumstances, because we must put all the numbers in proper context. Well, according to the papers which I have quoted earlier, the expected rate is around 1 or 2 cases for every 100,000 of population, or 1 to 2 cases per lakh of population. What has been found in India nationwide, the rate for NPAFP is around 11.82 per 100,000 of population, which is almost 10 times what it should really be. And that is a matter of great concern. Follow-up is not routinely done in most cases because in many remote parts of rural areas, parents bring their children to district quarters, or there are house-to-house visits by volunteers who are giving the oral vaccine, and there is no proper follow-up. However, a follow-up was done in a number of districts in the state of Uttar Pradesh, and what they found that after 60 days, 35.2% or just a little over 1/3 or 1 cases in 3 had residual paralysis. And what is worse, 8.5% or 1 out of every 12 children had died. When I'm mentioning that 8.5% had died, this is from the population which contracted the non-polio acute flaccid paralysis, which formed a rate of 11.82 for every 1 lakh of population. The paper concludes by saying that the frequency of pulse polio administration is directly or indirectly related to the incidence of NPAFP. That is a very damning conclusion. Dear friends, that brings me to the end of this presentation. Thank you for your attention. This was brought to you by the Wiser Owls Academy channel, whose motto is Be Wiser. This was presented and narrated by me, Ashok Rajguru. And in this age of information, it is your responsibility to become wiser. Once again, thank you very much for your support.